Hello everyone, this is Serious Trivia, and welcome back to round 2 of our subscriber game tournament. Now in case you found this video before watching our round 1 matches, feel free to use the playlist link in the description below to catch up with all the exciting matches that took place in the previous round. For everyone else, the purpose of this video is to introduce the rules of round 2 and share the schedules for the upcoming matches. Now, since we had 13 participants advancing out from round 1, it would be impossible for me to make a fair bracket for round 2. So instead, everyone will be playing against me in round 2 in a siege attack battle. I will of course be the defender here, using the same predetermined army setup against each and every opponent on the Hulao Gate Pass map seen here. In essence, this will be a speedrun challenge, as the top 8 time in defeating me will be advancing to our next round of the tournament with their time as their seed for the brackets. Now in case there are not 8 players capable of defeating me here, then those in defeat, we will look at their casualty inflicted numbers on my army to determine who will advance in the remaining slots. Now you might be thinking that as a defender in a gate pass battle, I have all the advantages. Well, this is true in some regards. I will be handicapping myself for this round, as I will only be allowed to use 2/3 of the total allocated funds. So, for our challengers here, they will have the full 15,000 army fund to spend, while I will be only spending exactly 9,975 with my army setting here. Because as you can see, the default handicap for defenders in multiplayer battles in the game is that defenders can only use 1,200 or 12,000 army fund, while the attackers always have the full 15,000 available to them. In addition to that, the defenders will obviously have those towers and siege weapons provided on the bastions. For this map, there will be one free multi-bolt crossbow for my side, and for the defenders, there will always be at least one free siege tower and one free battering ram. And for the sake of simplicity and to make things a little bit more interesting, I will always be placing my crossbow on the back side of the pass, away from where the army are being deployed, so they don't have to deal with it unless they choose to guerrilla deploy to the back side of the gate pass, which is another set of challenges in itself. For the same reason that I am not using my siege weapons, I have also asked all the challengers to also not use their free siege engines. Instead, if they want to bring siege weapons to our attack, they can use the ones provided in the game that they have to purchase with their army fund advantage. And with that, I think it's going to be quite interesting to see the matches for round 2. And as an additional interesting point, since there are going to be 5 rounds for our tournament and 5 seasons, each battle will take place in a different season, with round 1 taking place in spring with a day and dry weather. This one will be taking place in a summer, night and rain setting. Of course, the night battle here will not impact morale. Even if it does, it will benefit the attackers. So I, as a defender, will be suffering morale from that. If that does in fact impact it, I am actually not sure. I think it is actually just a visual setting. And for rain here, that is going to be a huge impact for this battle. The purpose why I select rain is to offer myself a bit of protection from any sort of fire destruction strategies where the challenger will be aiming to just burn down the entire gate pass, leading to settlement destruction, which leads to morale decay for the army. And that simply, prevents me from actually defending it and ruin kind of the siege attack feel. Therefore, we're going to play with rain. This does not prevent a fire strategy. It just makes it slightly more difficult. And, as the challenger, you have to weigh if that's actually worth your time. And that's really going to sum it up for our rules for this round. Now, I'm actually going to be jumping into battle here and showcasing a bit of my defensive philosophy before sharing the schedule for this round. So let's hop into battle, and I'll showcase how I intend to defend against the coming challengers with this simple army led by Lu Bu, 1 heavy Xiliang Cavalry, Zhang Liao, 2 Protector of Heavens, and 2 Camp Crushers. So let's start battle. Alrighty, so as we load into battle here, welcome to Hulao Gate Pass. There is a mighty river that runs through the gate pass, which creates a lot of interesting terrains inside with bridge platforms. And looking out this way, this is the starting deployment zone for the challengers. This is technically the front of the gate pass with the dual gates and the outstretched cropping here in the walls with these arrow towers that also shoot inside. And then we have these corner arrow towers that shoots beyond the, the yellow river here for no reason, but they still have a nice little quadrant to protect the front of each gate. That includes this one here. And most importantly, if you try to scale the walls here, these towers, as well as these, will be able to shoot you on the wall. So that's another interesting point to note. As you can see, this is the free siege weapon that I'll be receiving. And for those who have played in the campaign, you know these are extremely accurate siege weapons for some reason. Even though they're always defaulted to rank 1, they are very good at picking off your siege weapons. So for the purpose of not having to deal with this unit, we will be placing them across right here on the right of my backside, which looks very different from the front actually. There are less towers on this side. There are only 3 towers in the front. So given this is a guerrilla deployment zone, if the challenger's army have guerrilla deployment, they can choose to attack from this side. They will have to deal with this multi-bolt crossbow unit, but aside from that, there are a lot less towers to deal with and no corner towers to kind of shoot inside. But once they do arrive inside, there's a new set of challenges they try to take the flag, which will ultimately determine their victory, as the 2 interior towers only shoot this way. So that's a totally different set of challenge, which is something that this side does not have to deal with, because these towers basically will never affect the battle if you approach from the front. So there's a lot of interesting points here. And like the 2 towers pointed out over here, these 2 will also be able to shoot inside. So there might be this crossfire area right here where there will be 2 towers always shooting at it. And if you go past this line, there'll be 4 towers always shooting at it, both in this side and this side. So it is quite an interesting map. And as a defender, my thought process for the defense, I have a very default setup against most armies. I will be able to see their deployment. So this setup will, adapt and change depending on how these challengers deploy. And my default setup is to minimize casualties, because most likely, most challengers will bring siege weapons and they will try to take down the walls, the towers. We're going to have trebuchets hitting us, and I don't want my unit to take any, losses before the battle actually starts, because I have very limited number of troops. So by default, this wall on the river with the bridge platform is indestructible. It means siege weapons cannot target it. So right behind here is a great place to hide 1 unit. This way, at least I know trebuchets cannot damage my troops, and I can respawn to either side, as these are the doors to get on the wall. I can, reinforce either side to put men up. And then for my camp crushers, which are advanced versions of the Zhanmajian unit that's generic for all factions, they essentially have the same damage output as Zhanmajian, which is rather high, but they have much better armor. Zhanmajian only has about 32% armor. We have 53%, which is the top end for units in the game. And also, they have splash damage, which means if I am fighting in tight spaces, whether that is the door here or on the wall, these units will do great in terms of, killing off enemy unit in mass, as long as I'm holding a narrow choke to be able to swing my big swords around. And that means both of my camp crushers will be hiding right behind the gatehouse. And the reason why is very similar to why we placed that unit on the bridge, because the gatehouse and this bastion that it sits on is indestructible to trebuchet hits. Therefore, even if the gatehouse goes down, and that probably will happen if they get hit by trebuchet shots, my units will not get harmed. The angle, it's almost impossible to arc a shot, past this fort tower into my units. At least that way they're safe. And if the gate should fall, I can have my units charge into the gate tunnel where they're safe from enemy range. Now, of course, if the enemy will bring a lot of archer units, let's say they're bringing a lot of crossbow units and they have siege weapons, and after they took out my towers, they want to shoot my units with the crossbow, I can also adapt my force to hide into the tunnel here to make sure they do not get hit by those crossbow weapons at a certain arc. Now, of course, they're shooting forward. I will still get I'm going to get shot. There's nothing I can do about that. But overall, there's a bit of, interesting strategy we can use with this gate to help protect my units. And lastly, my last Protector of Heaven will be sitting here on the flag to make sure there's no sneak attempt in case someone wants to use stock units to perhaps scale the walls from behind. That would be something that I simply do not have the manpower to cover, as I only have 4 infantry units at my disposal. And for this setup, I'm usually going to hide them, at this tip of this rock here. The reason being very similar. If the enemy is trying to shoot me with siege weapons, at least these outcroppings will help me stop a bit of the trebuchet or crossbow damage that's coming my way. If the enemy fire gets too severe and it's too exposed over here, I can always retreat back here to kind of hide farther away from the enemy. But I should have always one unit near the flag to make sure it's not stolen from me for an easy victory, as after the flag is captured, there's only a 150-second countdown before the attacker is determined to be victorious. That leaves me with my 2 generals and my heavy Sealand cavalry, which is going to play a crucial role in prodding the enemy, delaying the enemy attack, buying time for my units. So my philosophy here for the cavalry is keep him either in the back over here, if the enemy's not deployed heavily on one side, or let's say the enemy's deployed, determined to attack this fort tower, then my cavalry will be on this side, and of course my camp crusher will be replaced accordingly. There's a lot of interesting setup with where these doors are as well. For example, if the enemy scale this wall or this wall, the only place they can exit is right here, right? So if I have a unit here, I can hold all of them. And if I'm afraid of walls collapsing, this wall right here. So it might look really weird, but where the wall turns, this corner is indestructible. But this piece is destructible. So if they hit this, there will be a hole here, but there will never be a hole here. So I can use that similar setup to protect my units right here. And that doesn't really apply here because this bastion is protected by itself. It can stand alone, but this corner cannot. So they extended it a little bit more. I can place my units on one side and the cavalry be on the weak side with no enemy, and they can charge out, they can guerrilla deploy out, hide in the forests, flank around, find openings basically. We're going to be challenging the player's micro ability by prodding them from behind with cavalry and generals. Now, I do have a fatal weakness in this defense, and that is I only have one unbreakable general, and that is Lu Bu. All my other units and generals are not unbreakable, so I am very prone to morale hits, which is why I disallowed the fire with the rain setup to kind of prevent the settlement from being burned down. As you can see, if the settlement is destroyed 100%, means everything is burned, I actually will lose 20 points of morale, and that's something that I just cannot afford on my units. If they have some sort of roar, it'll be over before it gets started. So for my generals, Lu Bu can definitely charge out if enemies are foolish enough to guerrilla deploy their range units so that they can start shooting from the beginning. I will be right here on the front to attack them. I have Dragon Gaze to stop charging infantry trying to scale walls. I will charge out, dive into them, use this, and then dive right back in the safety of my fort while they have to stand here for the next 30 seconds getting shot by my advanced arrow towers and gatehouses. And I can also slam on them and so forth. But the most important use of general in this battle for me is that they have to kill the enemy general. I only have 2 generals, and the enemy is definitely going to have 3. So I have to figure out how to kill their generals with my generals, because if they have Flame the Phoenix, I cannot stop them from using it because I have no strategists. So if they get into the wall with my units clumped up and they slap it down, my units will take heavy casualties and that's also something we can't really afford. So there's a lot of things for me to look out for in this battle. I also have no range, so everything will have to be melee, and it's going to be a great experience. As a matter of fact, by the time of this recording, I've already played all 13 players, and it's been a blast. So hopefully you guys will get to enjoy it as well. And now we're going to hop back out and take a look at the schedule, as well as the scoreboard that will be updated after every match. So see you guys there. Alrighty, so what you see here is going to be our scoreboard for round 2. This will be updated after every match that's played. And as you can see here, the ordering right now is based on when I played them. So the people on the top, as PKM, he'd be the first challenger to play me once this challenge was announced in the previous week. And while this might seem insignificant, I actually think it's more advantageous for people who played me early, because by the time I'm playing King of Yen, I have played this defense 12 times. My experience level with this map, with my units, have gone way up, whereas when I played PKM, I had to fumble around and figure out what I needed to do to set up my defense as well. Because as many of these players will tell you, it is impossible to practice for multiplayer because the AI simply doesn't offer the same type of challenges. So it should be a fun progression that we get to see as we play from match to match. And as for when you can expect to see these matches, here is the schedule for our round 2. We'll be doing the 2 match per day schedule to kick things off starting on Wednesday, December 8th at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. In the same exact time round 1 matches were taking place. We'll be doing double header matches, PKM, Hindustani Man on the first day, moving on to Viet Smasher, 0 on the second day. Will be Deed and Soviet Bear will be on day 3, and Mudu Chanyu and Xunzhong Yu will be day 4. Now by this time, we would have 8 players play. So these 8 would be the top 8 on our scorecard, and moving beyond that, starting on the 12th, we'll be moving to only 1 match per day, as with each new match played, we'll have an elimination game essentially, as if that player does better than our previous 8, they'll be moving into the top 8, while someone will be moving out and eliminated. So for these final 5 matches, we'll have them spread out on the final 5 days from December 12th to December 16th. So hopefully we'll have a little bit of excitement and anticipation to see who is moving on to our round 3 or the round of 8, which will follow shortly after the conclusion of this round. And with that, I hope you all are excited to see these matches, and I'm super excited to cast these, as these will be done in a similar replay format where I will have full control of the camera, providing a bit of analysis, even though I will be on the receiving end of some of my own criticism this time, which should also be interesting. So I'll see you guys when the matches start on Wednesday. Until then, bye!